learning doesn't have to be painful. Um, it can be fun. It can be really enjoyable. And the more social you make it, the more enjoyable you make it for the kids, the better they're going to do. The better that they do, the greater advantage they're going to have in life.
In this video, you'll meet Aaron Sawatsky, who's the founder of St. Jude's Academy in Mississauga, Ontario. And in this video, you'll hear him talk about how the IB program has proliferated across Canada since he opened the school. And you'll also hear him talk about why, if the school was a person, it would have a slightly anti-authoritarian streak. Hi, Aaron, how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm great, thanks. So first, can you start off by telling us 3 things that you love about your job at St. Jude's?
3 things that I love about my job. I love schools. I like kids. I don't know if that's the same or if those are separate. I can't really separate those two. So being able to go in every day and feel that energy that kids bring, and being able to teach them, that's fantastic. So that's a hard thing to not enjoy. A third thing, that would be a tough one. It has been my own kids. I started St. Jude's. One of the reasons was I wanted a place for my own kids to go that I could ensure they're getting the best quality education. And this past June, my own son is graduating and going off to university, my last one. So it's definitely taking a turn as to where and why we have St. Jude's.
What do you mean taking a turn as to where and why we have St. Jude's?
Well, it's been growing the whole time. So when I say taking a turn, meaning it's been growing and really advancing over the last few years, especially our high school area. We started off with the elementary, and it's been growing. This is just our 15th year of existence. We started off with 21 kids in a small house 15 years ago, and now we have over 550 students. We have a full high school, and it's quite exciting. So every year it's getting bigger and better, and so it's taking a turn that way, and that it's you always have new problems, new issues when you're starting to get size and scale.
Right. And I also understand that it was relatively recently, that St. Jude's became the full spectrum or the full continuum of the IB program. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe it was 2 years ago that we, yes, because this is our first graduating class of diploma students. So that would have been 2 years ago that we became a continuum school. So we're IB from JK all the way through to grade 12.
And why was that an important step for St. Jude's to take to be able to offer that full spectrum?
Once again, so when I started St. Jude's back in 2006, I started it with the idea of becoming an IB school. You're not able to start out in an IB school right off the bat from day one. They want you to get a few years under your belt first. And so we got our PYP first, then we got our MYP, and then getting the DP. It was very important for us because it's a framework. Having an outside organization not necessarily audit you, but be there with you to make sure that you're doing what you need to be doing. There's a lot of credibility with that. And that's what I really wanted. I wanted to make sure that there was credibility, that we were doing what we said we were going to do, that there was a plan. A plan was laid out so that we could see what was supposed to happen. Teachers understood where we were going and what it was supposed to happen. That was very important to me.
And when you opened St. Jude's with the intention of incorporating the IB program, how common was it at the time, or what made you want to fill that niche or that need?
There was actually IB in my high school back in the late 80s. And so that's where I was first exposed to it. I'd never heard of it before. But in my high school, I was exposed to one of the very first high schools in Canada to actually have a diploma program. Back then, it wasn't a diploma program. It was just the IB, because IB was just grade 11 and 12. And then when I became a teacher, going through university and became a teacher, we'd heard about the IB program, and I started investigating it. And I just realized this was the best framework that I could see to put into a school to make sure that you had the integrity of what you were teaching. And so that was so important to me. And then I learned more about the MYP and then the PYP. It just seemed to really make sense. Inquiry-based learning, it was just so much more important to us than, a teacher standing at the front of the room lecturing in the sort of the classic style. We can even go back a little bit further than that. In school, I always wondered, why do we do things the way we do? I didn't okay in school, but I never really enjoyed it. It was something to tolerate it, something to get through. And, you couldn't wait to get to that next piece to get away from it. And I wanted to have a school where that wasn't the reality. It was something that I want the kids to actually enjoy. I mean, learning is magical. To learn something about science or to learn things with mathematics, it's like magic. And so for kids to go to a class thinking that it's dull and boring, I don't understand that. History are the greatest stories of the world. And so if kids are not enjoying school, I think that we're doing something wrong. And so the whole idea with the IB is that being inquiry-based and having students ask great questions first to sort of kick off where we're going, that just made it, it made it real for them. It made it something that they would like and would enjoy.
And in your experience within the last 15 years of running St. Jude's, how have you seen the IB landscape changing in Canada and specifically in Ontario, where St. Jude's is located?
Landscape of the IB has changed since we started off. There's a lot more schools that have the IB. We started off with just DP schools around, usually in private schools or in some, each region had a diploma program, grade 11 and 12. And now there's a lot more MYP and there's a lot more MYP and PYP schools that are around. So it's something, there's a credibility that's there, and a lot of people understand that credibility and see it. And so because the parents like that credibility, there's a lot of schools that are incorporating the IB into the program now, which I think is fantastic. The more IB schools, the merrier, because the better we're going to have the next society, I think.
Oh, why is that? Why would you say that IB will lead to a better society?
Well, it's asking kids to be globally minded, especially if we take something as, what's going on in the United States right now, some of the issues that we have even politically. We're asking kids to start thinking about these things now, as opposed to thinking about them maybe when, later in high school or possibly even university. If they're starting during their grade 6 exhibition, grade 6, they do a big project that takes about 6 weeks. If they're thinking about global issues at a younger age and are able to come up with a problem, come up with a solution for that problem and present that's huge, because of the confidence that it instills in the kids.
And we're definitely seeing now the kind of activism that young people are capable of. They're really kind of leading the way in terms of making sure that people are listening to them and their views are being seen and being heard. So we know now that students of this age are more than capable of handling that kind of thinking.
They are, and that's the big thing. Whereas schools all up until this point, or up until about 20, 30 years ago, was just about learning information. But of course, with the internet now, we don't need to learn the information as much as critically think about the information. And so that's where the modern school is. So that's what we have to teach the kids now, is how to deal with the modern school and the modern age. In fact, in some ways, they teach us more because they're growing up in the middle of it and they don't actually know the way it used to be even 20 years ago. So it's quite exciting.
Right. And so in terms of the way that IB has kind of proliferated through the country and become more popular, how does St. Jude's remain unique in its culture or its approach to it?
Yes, so all IB schools do have a common element and a common thread, but there's just one part that, it's not really an IB thing. Well, it is an IB thing, but it's not really a core issue. It's just, I don't want to call it customer service because that sounds very businessy, but it's just relationships. We start every staff meeting, every planning session that we have talking about relationships. This has to be about a relationship between the student and the teacher, the student and the parents and the administration, because it's not a product. It's not a pair of jeans that you go to buy. It is a relationship. And no kid really fully grasps the potential unless they feel safe and secure in an environment. And they're not going to do that unless they feel like they have a relationship with the teacher. If they just feel like they're going through the motions, if they're just there to check off a box, then that's what you're going to get, is a box that is checked. So what St. Jude's, how it's a little bit different is we still have that relationship. We have no intentions of ever growing big enough that we don't have those relationships. I want to be able to know every single student in the school. All of our teachers do know every kid by name. That's very important to us. We know the parents, we know the kids. We want to be able to say hello in the hall and know who each other are. We feel that's the biggest thing with, especially in the digital age that we're in, is keeping the relationships so important.
And can you describe your typical day and how you function throughout the school life?
Me personally?
Yeah, and your role as founder of the school.
As founder of the school, yeah, I'm going to give a little anecdote. When I was younger and I would see the principals and heads of schools go through the schools, they were usually picking up garbage. And I thought they have nothing better to do. But that was such an important thing, as one of the things I do most and students laugh about is walking around and picking garbage up off the floor and trying to model that is what we should all be doing, is putting things away, and because I think that's a very important thing. But that's just a small piece. It's just kind of a funny thing.
Right.
But it's interacting with the students is very important. Being there and present in the building and talking with parents, talking with students, talking with teachers on a daily basis. It's the almost the informal approach of with leadership, that people can approach us about anything. Students will come up to us and pitch ideas for student council, for things that they'd like to do. And it's a great opportunity for them just to be able to approach us at any point, because it is a relationship. It's not filled with bureaucracy. So I do a lot of walking around the school. That's one of the first things that I do. Last year was kind of fun. For the first time in 6 years, I taught a philosophy class, grade 11 philosophy class. Now, as long as I remembered not to be late for that class, which happened a few it was a blast. That class was so interesting. When you get a bunch of 15 and 16-year-olds and you're talking about what is good, what is evil, what is beauty, what is art? Like, these are great questions, open-ended questions that the kids love to debate. So that was a lot of fun. Yeah, that's basically is my day. We pop in and out of classrooms all the time. The administration is constantly doing evaluations on our teachers, and that takes a long time. So we're popping in and out of classes in sort of 10 to 15 minute intervals, so that we can make sure that what's going on in the classroom is what we're telling the parents is happening as well. We want to make sure that whatever we sold the parents when they came in, we're actually doing. That's important for us.
And what is your relationship like with the parents of St. Jude's? Are you in close communication with them, or are you brought in certain times, or can you describe how those relations are playing out?
It's true that when we were smaller, I knew every single parent by name. It gets a little bit more difficult as they're dropping off and picking up, and newer ones that come in. But between the leadership team, I have my head of school, Melissa Chin, who's on maternity leave at the moment. She is actually much better than I am at making sure she says hello to everybody every day. But with our full leadership team, we try to make sure that everybody is being able to be represented, covered, and talked to pretty much on a daily basis. Whether it's a deputy head of school, or myself, or just a lead teacher, we ask people be outside, especially where parents are being dropped off, picked up, or sorry, kids are being dropped off and picked up, where the parents congregate, and talk to them. Constantly talk to the parents on a daily basis. It's very important to us. Being accessible and approachable is very important for us.
Right. And how do you approach resolving conflicts that arise with parents in the school?
Oof. We don't have a rule book, that's for sure. We learn quickly that a rule book is easy for us, but it does not make sense for the parents or the students. So we look at everything almost on an individual basis. That's a lot more work for us, but I just find I can't be fair unless we look at everything on an individual basis. If it's a conflict between two students, if it's a conflict between a parent and a teacher, I think it's so important to go into it knowing that, with a blank slate, basically, and understanding that get the information, find out what's going on, and try to hear people to find out what the problem truly is, so that you're not finding that problem again and again and again. We found if we just threw rules at it, a rule would just sort of mask a problem, or sort of drive a parent away to go find another school that may have been more suited for them. So we look at everything on a individual basis, and so that we can try to solve it. Once again, it goes back to our philosophy of having a relationship with each one of the parents and each one of the students.
Right. And what kind of family, what kind of parent is drawn to St. Jude's?
I don't know if we have a particular type. We have the full demographic. We really do. We are not the most expensive school. We are probably not the most prestigious school, although we're not the most inexpensive and probably not the least prestigious. We're kind of a middle of the road school that way. And we really do attract a full wide spectrum of students from backgrounds, demographic, ability. It's very hard for us to pinpoint. We do take the data every year to look at, sort of the demographic of who we have. And it's amazing how year by year it changes. And so we haven't really been able to pinpoint that.
Right. Is it mostly from the Mississauga area?
Oh, okay. So if you mean that way demographically, yes. The majority would be from Mississauga. Brampton would be next, Milton, and then some from Oakville as well.
Right. And is there a student that wouldn't excel at St. Jude's?
The IB program is pretty comprehensive that way, in that it's really looking at finding where a student is and taking them to the next level, whatever that is. So within differentiated learning, especially in the younger grades. If you tried to come in at grade 11 and you didn't have a really strong foundational background in education, it might be difficult. But if you came in any other year before then, the IB teaches you how to ask the right questions, how to think about what you're learning, to look at your own strengths and weaknesses so that you understand how you learn. So how should I properly study? How should I look at these things? So it really helps to foster a confident student. The only type of student that I say doesn't do well is someone, if their parents force them to come, they don't have the attitude to be there. And that's only been once or twice that we've actually seen that. And they've kind of got their mind made up that this is not where I want to be, but my parents want me to be here. Pretty much everyone else that comes in has a lot of fun because we make it a very fun school. We strive to have as much fun as we possibly can.
And because St. Jude's offers JK to grade 12, do you see a lot of students in completing that full journey, or do they come in at certain times or strategically choose the years that they're at the school?
Mississauga can be a bit of a transient place. People move into Mississauga and then can move out. So that's about half of our population. But we also have the other half of the population that they're there and they're staying around. And there's such a large group of students who do stay throughout. It's kind of funny. Our very first student who started in grade 1 and finished in grade 12, who wasn't a Sawatsky, wasn't related to me. His name is Albert Paluzzi, and he's actually friends of my son. And so we now have created what's called the Albert Paluzzi Award, because he was the first one to start in grade 1 and end in grade 12. And when he started, there were only 3 kids in that grade 1 class. It was Alberto, my son Jude, and another girl named Madeline. And so Madeline ended up moving to, I believe, Indonesia. So, it's kind of funny that Alberto is now recognized for time to come on the Alberto Paluzzi Award. And
your son, his name is Jude. Is he
Yes.
Is it the namesake of the school?
He would like to tell you that. I would say it's not really connected, but yes.
And so you said that you like to create a fun school. Can you tell me more about the culture and the life of the school?
Once again, if you eliminate so many barriers, if kids want to get up every morning and get to school, especially think when they get to high school, so many kids wake up, they don't want to go to school. So if you actually are excited about going to school, you're excited about going to see your friends, classes aren't a drag, they're not a bore, then, you know, we've eliminated half the problems right there. So we do everything from crazy house games and house cups. We have a huge house system within our school, and that's so important. And so that's one of the first things. The second thing is just the teaching staff who we hire. If they don't have a sense of play, they don't usually get hired. So when we look at when we do our mass interviews every year, we do a big mass interview where 60, 70 teachers come in to apply for usually the 1 or 2 positions we have open. We actually put them through a whole process where the other staff members get to come in and evaluate as well, because we're looking for a certain type of teacher, a certain type of, not necessarily better or worse, but they have to have a sense of play, a sense of joy, a sense of enthusiasm. Because if you're not enjoying the class, if you're just sitting there and you're thinking, this guy doesn't want to be here and I don't want to be here, then that's what you're going to get. You're going to get 2 people that don't want to be there. So we like a school where the environment is just have as much fun as you possibly can. So random acts of craziness happen all the time. Steve Neal, our director of student life, will just do crazy things at any moment, like in the cafeteria. It can be a simple thing in the morning, from choosing 3 people one from each house, getting them to take off their right shoe, taking a garbage bin and seeing who can throw their shoe into the garbage bin first. And it sounds crazy, but little things like that randomly throughout the week, it makes the kids really like school.
And if St. Jude's was a person, not your son Jude, what kind of personality traits would they have?
If St. Jude's was a person, they would definitely be inquisitive. They would definitely be inquisitive, is what would be one of them. I'm going to say a strange one probably. They would be slightly anti-authoritarian. We teach our students to challenge our teachers, not in a bad way, but in a good way. We constantly ask our students to ask our teachers, why? Why am I studying this? Why am I learning this? When is this going to be needed? Because that is so important to us. So that's part of that inquisitiveness as well. We want kids to know why. So they would ask a lot of those questions. They would be somebody that has definitely a sense of humor and a sense of play. St. Jude's would definitely be a kid that likes to play light pranks on someone else. That's for sure.
And what kind of advice do you have for a parent who's just beginning their private school search or in the middle of it?
All private schools are different, and you need to find one that matches your student or your kid and your family's lifestyle, your value system. That's the biggest thing. I encourage people not to bounce around from one to the next to the next. I mean, it's one thing if you have to move, but stability is a very important thing for a kid in their younger years. So find a school that you really feel comfortable with. So go to a school that will actually let you come in for a trial day or a trial week. We've let people sometimes come for 2 or 3 weeks, just on classes to figure out for the next year if this is where they want to be. If they're still not sure, keep coming back until you either know yes or no. And then references as well. Get a list of references from the head of school, from the admissions department, from families. The best schools, of course, are going to, choose the families that we like the most and that connect with us the most. But with that, you're going to not just get a biased view of it. You're going to get what they find exciting about the school. And then we encourage our families as well to think of what you wish the school could do better. What are some of our flaws or our warts, so to speak, and make sure that you tell these new parents about that as well. So they don't go in thinking that we have rose-colored glasses and everything is perfect, because no school is perfect. So you have to find out, which one is right for you. So check it out, take your time, really investigate and see. And that's about it. Try to find the one that fits you best.
And is there a red flag that you would encourage parents to look out for that a parent who's not as familiar with the industry as you are may not think to think about even?
All private schools, all schools that I know of, it's about the leadership. If it has the right leadership, then it will probably be a good school. And there's lots of good private schools. That is the most important part. So if you want to see a red flag, can you actually access the leadership? Can you talk to them? Can you express why, or find out why something is done the way it is? If you have a suggestion, will they at least hear it? You can't always do it, of course, but will they at least hear it? That is so important. So the big red flag would be check out their leadership and see, if you're just talking to an admissions person and you can't get a hold of anybody else, that's a pretty big red flag.
Okay, is there anything that we haven't talked about St. Jude's that you want to make sure you mention?
Learning doesn't have to be painful. It can be fun. It can be really enjoyable. And the more social you make it, the more enjoyable you make it for the kids, the better they're going to do. The better that they do, the greater advantage they're going to have in life. So that's the biggest thing for me right now is, I'm trying to encourage parents to look for some place that your kid is going to flourish. The old ways are gone, where we try to yell at kids or try to force them to do something or guilt them into things. They just don't work. We don't usually parent that way much anymore. And so schools that still offer that, I just don't find them effective. So kids are a lot more savvy in some ways they're not. But one of the ways is that they can smell authenticity. And so trying to be a school that is authentic and has an authentic good time, and you're teaching something for an authentic reason, and that will speak volumes to children.